What's your most and least favorite sales methodology of all time and why? There you go.
You first.
We spent $2 million in command of the message, and we have to roll this out at the end of the quarter almost.
We all know in enablement, nothing is seamless. To me, that's the magic sauce, especially with methodology.
I have Steph, wide in front of me. I gotta do it.
I'll be like, Michael, here's what you need to do and what you need to own for your people so that there's clarity on their accountability for the next 30, 60, 90, whatever it is. I don't do it that way.
Most people do. Most enablers on the show so far did it. So I'm curious. Tell me.
And this is like a little bit controversial, and people are going to be like, "Ooh, girl, you're in trouble." But you've been spicy twice on this podcast.
Hey folks, this is Michael Ocean, founder and CEO of SellMeThisPen AI, an all-in-one AI sales coaching platform that helps reps before, during, and after client calls. Less about us, let's talk about our star on the show. I don't know anyone, at least in my circle, who doesn't know Stephanie White. She's a full-time senior director of sales enablement in tech and the founder of her own consulting company, Enablement Reimagine. Not only has she been recognized as a two-time one to watch and a winner of the Legend 23 award, but she's also a regular speaker and ambassador in the sales enablement community. So today I'm super pumped because we're chatting with someone who's been there and done that, and we're going to learn how to seamlessly roll out methodologies for our sales org. All right, Stephanie, how's it going?
It's good. First of all, let's just lower that little bar a little bit. Seamlessly roll out. We all know in enablement, nothing is seamless. So we're going to talk about how to make that a bit smoother. No guarantees on seamless. I will say also, hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. Michael was too kind. Our enablement circle in Canada is like a little bit smaller than some other countries. So hence the context for how we all know each other so well up here. But great to meet everybody virtually.
Amazing. Look, Stephanie, you've seen a lot of changes in how sales methodologies are rolled out. What's the biggest change you've seen over the years?
So when I started in sales, I'm dating myself here. That's fine. No one believes I'm a Gen Z. That's okay. It was 20 years ago. And sales methodology was literally here's a sheet. Go get this done. There wasn't training. There wasn't even role plays at that point. It was here's a sheet of what you need to do. Go book your deals, which of course we all look back on that now and think, well, that's criteria, or those are requirements for qualification. That's not a sales methodology. Agreed. But at the point in time when that was considered methodology. So I think it's really cool, even as I think back over the last 20 plus years, hurts to say out loud, just how that has evolved from being here's a thing, go do it, to here's an approach we want to teach you, to here is conversations and insights that you can start to listen for and things you can start to action in multiple parts of your day. And that for me is how sales methodology has gone from being requirements criteria to book the sale to an entire psychology to how you interact with your customers and how you actually align to value and close those opportunities. I get excited about it.
I know. Look, it resonates a lot because I started my career in tech a long time ago. It's been almost a decade, if not more. And I remember I was selling Microsoft solutions, Microsoft suites of product, Office 365, Azure, you name it. And I had no idea about tech. I was a musician. I got into tech. This is my first sales job. And I genuinely didn't get any hand holding. It was like this. This is your computer. This is your setup. Sit down and watch this, 40 hours, plus whatever recordings about all these licenses and, learn about their codes. I was like, am I selling this to CTOs?
Right.
I have no idea who a CTO is.
Yep.
And how should I even do that? But to your point, I think the biggest change is to really be relevant to our buyer persona rather than anything else, and also making this rollouts a collaborative effort, between everyone in the org. Not only sales rep, hey, you have your one sheet, go read it, and you got to be a superstar. All right, that's a great start.
So, obviously, we are. Thank you for noticing, boss.
So look, um, when it comes to introducing new sales methodologies, how do you assess which one is the best fit for your sales org?
So it's interesting. I have rolled out 4 formally from an enablement capacity. And with those 4, part of it was evaluating what is the best fit for us. I think, especially in tech and in B2B SaaS, it is so competitive. We all know this. You can no longer differentiate yourself just on your product, right? Because you might have something today, you mentioned Microsoft. A month later, your number one competitor has it. Guess what? That differentiator is now gone. And so it becomes more about how you sell as your
Mm,
differentiator than what you sell. And so one of the things that I keep in mind, and I can probably list a few of them really quick, but when we're looking at sales methodologies is which one feels true to the personality that we want to show up as an organization for the brand
mhm,
experience that our customers take away. And I call that out because a challenger methodology, for example, is much more, I'd hazard to say, even aggressive, right? It's like, oh, there's something, let's poke it, let's poke it, let's poke it. A
mhm,
command of message is towards that direction, but it's more, ooh, I think I heard a pain there. Let's explore that.
mm,
Let's go around that. Versus some of the other methodologies are much more consultative. And so they can be much more passive in terms of how you interact with your customers. So I always think about, does this methodology align with the personality that we want our customers to take away from that brand experience? And I'm sure marketing people are going, Stephanie White, brand and personality are not the same thing. But hear me out. Hear me out. Because as salespeople, it is something that we need to think about, right? What is the human flavor that we are bringing to that customer interaction where we're talking about our products and solutions? So, for sure, the personality or vibe that we want our customers to experience as part of that interaction is part of it. And then I think the other piece is really thinking about which methodology aligns with the teams in your organization that you want to get on side.
mhm.
Some of them are incredibly seller focused. And some people might say, of course, it's a sales methodology. Okay. But in a lot of organizations, selling is increasingly a team sport, which requires solutions that could be pre-sales, that could be proposal teams. You may get professional services as part of the new business sales cycle also. And so making sure the methodology fits with the teams that are actually part of your sales cycle is
Mhm.
really, really important evaluation criteria also in my mind.
I love it. So I heard two things. First and foremost, it should be a fit for the way we want to present the brand. It
Mhm.
should fit with our personality. I have a question for this, but I keep it. The second one was it should fit within not only our sellers, we are not only enabling our sellers, but we are enabling our buyers through these methodologies. Does it really fit with what they want to hear? Or we're just because it is called sales methodology, we just focus on our own teams and our own agendas. Let me ask a question about this personality, if you will, because I really don't know. And I'm sure you have great experience like exploring that. And who's getting involved in this? Like, I'm sure marketing has a say, maybe senior leadership, but who really defines it? And what's the role of enablement in really navigating and guiding everyone?
Yeah, I think where it starts from is your top down sales leadership culture.
Hmm.
Increasingly, more and more organizations have company values and then sales values, right? Because company values may include things like innovation,
Yeah.
but sales values will often include things like accountability,
Mhm.
grit, agility, like the specific behaviors we need to show up with. And so I would say, as we're thinking about the personality, that's very much what is your sales culture? And the reason why I call that out is because you cannot front, to put it bluntly. If your organization internally is one that truly believes in providing each other with feedback, collaborating, and brainstorming with each other, a consultative sales approach is a really good natural fit for your internal culture, right?
Mhm.
And it'll be a lot more authentic, not just for your sellers when they try to relay that in their sales cycles, but also for your buyers in terms of what they experience at all the dozens of little touch points that they get with your organization.
Mhm.
So I would say it starts with the sales culture, but then of course, like, we got to love our marketing peeps. We have to. We show up together, right? It's what is the brand officially that we are putting out into the market?
Mm-hmm.
Because more often than not, our customers or prospects have already had multiple touch points, whether they realize it or not, multiple exposures to the brand as defined by marketing. So it's definitely finding that balance. And I'll give you an example of that. Let's say our internal sales culture, as we just said in that example, is very aligned to a consultative sales process.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe our brand is all about fast moving, bright colors, high energy, quick innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So we want to factor in both of those things when we're thinking about the culture. And a consultative methodology may still be the right approach, but when we actually work into the operating cadence of how that shows up in our sales process, in the different stage requirements that we have in our CRM, that's where we want to make sure we're incorporating that fast speed, quick pokes for the innovation, quick driving action elements to incorporate those in.
I really love what you said. It seems like you can incorporate a methodology that might be slightly different from the big brand and big vision and all that.
Mhm.
Would that be even possible, or I'm completely off?
So I think you can. I think, arguably, I think you almost have to, because here's the thing, and I'm going to liken this to an example that I think a lot of people in sales can relate to. It's almost like a cold call opener.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on the surface, you use a permission based opener, let's just say,
Yeah.
as your approach.
Yeah.
That's like your sales methodology. Okay, decision made. When you cold call somebody, use a permission based opener.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Similar to saying we picked this methodology. Okay, but which one? What resonates best with your ICP? Which one can you actually deliver more effectively?
Mm-hmm.
So, whether it's do you want to roll the dice with me? Or this is a cold call. Feel free to hang up on me right now and I'll never call you back again.
Yeah.
Or whichever your permission based is, I think you have to find a way to customize it and internalize it to your organization, because that's when the magic happens.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can use a permission based opener. Anyone can use a specific sales methodology. It's how you use it and how you show up in those customer conversations and deliver it authentically that makes the difference of whether that sales process or methodology works or not.
That tells me the value of enablement right there. Look, I've been a high performer. I've been a horrible performer starting my career. I learned it the hard way. And also I manage teams, and honestly, I'm never going to be able to figure this out. Like, this is, to me, has a lot to do with the psychology and understanding of, okay, I know a lot about the team. I know a lot about my buyer persona, how to really stick them together. How do we come up with a methodology that works for both sides of the table? So we don't want our sellers to feel burned out and, hey, this is not the way I can sell. I've
Mhm.
been selling it differently. You just inherited this team and you're trying to bring, tons of change. Also for the buyer persona, if it doesn't resonate, it doesn't matter if you have the greatest methodology or train your reps perfectly. It does not resonate. I don't care about your permission-based opener. Look, right now, again, tech plays a big role in, modern sales strategies, methodology rollout being part of it. What are your thoughts on human element remaining crucial in this? Can you share an example where, blending technology with the human touch made a significant difference in the rollout?
Yeah, so I think as we talk about tech, listen, we had a laughable moment yesterday on LinkedIn. By the way, I'm on LinkedIn a lot. For anyone who's listening, want to connect with me. Jeff Hatton, shout out to Jeff. He recorded a hilarious video yesterday, and he tried to use a new AI prompt in the platform to send a connection request that was personalized. And he used John Krasinski, famous actor, lots he could go on there for the prompt. Now, the prompt that he used was pretty good. He tied in, let's reference this from his movie. And what the AI spat out was the most generic, hi, John, comma, new line, new line. I would like to connect with you professionally. Regards, Jeff. Like, so I say that because that is such like a ugh moment that we still have with tech. I love technology. I've been experimenting with AI through sales methodology, sales processes, and outreach for the last few years. There is huge opportunity for it to make us more efficient and effective, not to replace common sense, not to replace your own instincts. And there's a balance there. Using tech to practice, let's say part of your methodology is specific discovery questions or specific trap setting questions. Using tech to practice with an ICP, awesome. Awesome. It is much more effective than trying to role play with your manager who has 15 direct reports, because maybe you can only get to that person once a week, right?
Yeah.
So it's a really, really good complement. Also, considering it for things like research. When you are doing some research on a prospect or an account that you want to reach out to, not spending 30 minutes doing it on your own from scratch. Don't do that. That is not worth your time, right? If this is just a cold call that you're going to do, you need something that's quick and helps you be more efficient. I personally think that the role that tech plays, whether it's sales methodology or process, it's all about taking the things off our plates that take a lot of time. There's redundancy, some of the repetitive nature, right? Taking those off our plates so we can be more efficient and effective. And by the way, that means we can spend our time doing the huge value add things. So really being present and listening in the customer conversation, because we're not worried about taking notes.
Exactly. Do you believe your reps burn leads practicing on client calls? When it comes to giving them one-on-one coaching sessions, you just don't have the bandwidth, so you get rid of them altogether? Or maybe you notice that your team spends a lot of time on non-revenue tasks like taking notes, updating CRM, or drafting emails. These are the exact challenges we solve for other revenue leaders like yourself. With SellMeThisPen AI Coach, you can offer your reps role-play sessions at scale while automating one-on-one coaching sessions based on your best practices and methodology. Also, AI will take care of all their non-revenue tasks, like note-taking, CRM updates, draft the email for them, so they can focus on constant improvement while you're focusing on one thing and one thing only: revenue growth. If you're interested in learning more about the clients we are working with or use cases that might be beneficial to you, check us out at SellMeThisPen.ai. Look, you've been around, you rolled out methodologies for many great companies. We're not going to name them, guys, don't sue us. But in your experience, what are some of the most common pitfalls that organizations fall into when adopting to new sales methodologies, and how can they avoid it?
Yeah. So a couple of really simple, tactical, and operational things. One, a sales methodology should not be limited to just your sellers. Should not. Everybody who is part of your go-to-market teams should understand what that sales methodology is. Now, do they go through it as in-depth as your sellers? Likely not, but they need to be speaking the same language, on the same page, and understanding what the sellers are trying to accomplish in their conversations. So do not limit it just to your sellers. Make sure that your biz dev people are in there, your marketing people are in there, your solutions people are in there, all of those teams that come together as part of the customer journey and the sales cycle. Number one. Number two, point in time, check box, this training is done. We talk about this in enablement. Yes, there are times when we are done after we communicate something once, for sure, right? Sometimes we're done. It is that easy. Here is updates coming from Salesforce. We're flipping over. It's happening this Sunday. Outage is happening this time to this time. Here's what you need to know. It's a one and done. Sales methodology is not that. We need to be thinking about it as an employee experience of learning. What I mean by that is your sales methodology is your managers, getting them trained up first because they need to be able to support their people. Then you support and train the field, and you make sure that they have the tools and resources and assets. Last piece there is a big one, that are aligned with the sales methodology. This does mean you do need to go back and update some of your internal working documents. It does mean that your internal marketing content and product messaging content does need to be updated. Sales methodology shouldn't be in a vacuum for the majority of companies. We need to be thinking about the entire go-to-market motion and how everybody can contribute to that methodology in practical application and the buyer experience that comes away from it. So those are two like right off the bat tips of things that I have seen gone wrong that can quite easily instead go right.
Hmm. What I'm taking from this is it's not an event. It's not that, hey, we rolled out the methodology, woohoo, we are done here. It's a
I mean, I'd love
constant
that, but no.
change. Yeah, we wish. But the reality is your market is changing.
Mhm.
You acquire companies, you get acquired by companies, you have new competitors popping up every day. So you need to be nimble enough to bring all these changes and embed it to your methodology as the foundation. One of the things that I noticed, while I was performing as a rep, and it was not only me, most reps not necessarily show resistance, but having a very hard time understanding as of why methodologies matter. Why? Because at least in my experience, we had this 200 plus sales org. So you have naturally, sales leaders, frontline managers, they bring their own flavor to things, right?
Mhm.
This is how you should do it. And most sellers, got their own background, their own way of selling.
Mhm.
Then you introduce the sales methodology. So
Mhm.
everybody's like, I'm already, trying to hit the quota,
Yep.
and you're rolling it out
Yep.
at a very bad time. So to me, even timing matters.
Mhm.
Like I know sometimes, senior leadership really pushed it. Like I was chatting with a friend, she was like, "We spent $2 million on command of the message, and we have to roll this out at the end of the quarter almost." And everybody's freaked out. Like this is not a right timing for such big initiative. And sometimes as leaders, maybe ego gets in the way. Maybe we have some, I don't know, some challenges with our board. We just push something without thinking of our end users and our
Mhm.
power users, our admins, and people who influence that change. And I think change management overall plays a big role into this. Do we have the timing right? Do we have the right people aligned with this, rollout? What are your thoughts on this?
Honestly, it seems like there's never a right time for any large scale training initiative because there is always a, well, it's month end or it's quarter end or it's QBRs or. So I think it's in a lot of ways less about timing specifically and more, and this is an enablement challenge, more about how we increase the WIFM for our sellers.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're doing methodology training, having it as a workshop, A, really helps them internalize it and understand it, but B, gives you an opportunity in the breakout sessions of workshop to say, go work on a current deal. Take what you
Mm-hmm.
learned
Put
today
into practice right
and
away.
apply it with an open deal that you have. Meaning, at the end of that workshop, you've actually developed an account strategy plan or you
Mm-hmm.
have developed the mutual action plan for a live opportunity. So at the end of that training, not only have you learned it, you've internalized it, you've practically applied it, you then turn around, you apply it to a real deal, which should help
Mm-hmm.
move your sales cycle forward. So I
That makes
think
sense.
best laid plans, yeah, for sure. We have like golden training times. In reality, in my experience, like there's always something,
Mm-hmm.
right, that comes up timing wise. And so it's more about focusing on, we can't control that. What we can control is the value and how we try to pass along the information and have our sellers learn from it in a way that isn't just a call to action to do in the next 2 weeks, but actually they action it in that session. So when they leave their time with you, you've added value to their day rather than just taking time out of it. To me, that's
Mm-hmm.
the magic sauce, especially with
Mm-hmm.
methodology.
So you get them basically to practice right in the practice session in front of everyone. So they just put it into action right away. So now the question is, how do you ensure that they continuously apply
Yeah.
this methodology? Because doing it during a training session is one thing. I
Yep.
have a stiff, white in front of me. I gotta do it.
I'll be
But
like, Michael,
sure. But when you are on field, when you're inside that ring, you have all the
yeah,
plans, you have all the training, you just get that punch in the face, and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna switch back to what I know, works for
yeah,
me." And yeah, methodology is great. I apply it next time. How
yeah.
do you ensure that reps actually adopt it?
Yeah. So listen, I don't think there's one answer that works 100% of the time. Let's be honest. I'm a former seller
Of
too, right?
course,
There's
of course.
nothing someone could have said to me, no matter how much whiffum they put on it, no matter how valuable it in theory was, I was going to veer off course at some point
Mm,
because in the moment in my deal, I was reacting and responding to what my customer needed, right?
mhm.
Um, I think there's a few tactical ways that we can do it. One, I was going to use a creepy voice, but I'm going to hold that back. I'm listening to your
Please do,
calls.
please.
Listening to your calls. It's like that conversational intelligence tool that's just like,
Oh man, you're kidding.
hi, I'm here listening. But I mean, joking aside, setting up trackers in your conversational intelligence tool, setting up scorecards, making sure, and again, we talked about this, having the managers on side before it goes out to field, making
Mhm,
sure you're arming leaders with the tools that make it easier for them to evaluate their people on the application of it, to leverage AI. A
mhm,
lot of the CI tools, whether you're talking about Gong or others, set up your trackers, your smart trackers. Have that
mhm,
report kick out to you. You can do a scorecard very easily, right? Here's what people are saying. Here's teams that are using it well. Here's how it ties to their deals progressing. Gold. The
mhm,
other thing is, arming managers with, and this doesn't always apply, but when it makes sense, a coaching kit.
mhm,
Someone on my team refers to it as a pack. I've called it a coaching kit in previous lives. But essentially, arming the managers with a clear thing. Here's what you need to do and what you need to own for your people so that there's clarity on their accountability for the next 30, 60, 90, whatever it is. And in that same package, here's what we're going to do as your enablement partners. And you'll notice there I use the word partners. I am adamant I don't call our internal teams my customers.
hmm.
I don't
Interesting.
view it that way.
Most people do. Most enablers on the show so far did it. So I'm
I
curious. Tell
know.
me.
And this is like a little bit controversial, and people are going to be like, "Ooh, girl, you're in trouble." But hear me out. It's because, and it could be because I come from a background in sales. So it's never been a us and them in my mind.
Mhm,
My experience has taught me that the way we work most effectively is when we show up as partners. We're in it together. And the minute that I start referring to somebody as my customer, or I start treating them as tickets coming in that I prioritize based on my stuff, my
mhm,
needs, my goals, that psychological shift creates a riff.
mhm,
And while that may work for a lot of people and different organizations, yes, are all different. For me, I like to view our sales leaders as being my peers, my partners. So whether it's a leader in marketing or a sales leader or a solutions person, like that's my starting lineup. So if my
mhm,
point guard, who is, let's say, our head of pre-sales, needs something, I'm running down the court.
mhm,
I'm not going to be like, oh, please let me know the play in advance. Let me know when that's going to happen, exactly what quarter, what that lineup's going to be, and let's collaborate on the play. For
mhm,
me, it's about being agile and being in it together. And it's
yeah.
really that, I think, empathy that comes with if you were a former seller or a sales leader, like you get it. Sometimes with all the pressure that you have on you, your team needs you for all these deals, you're trying to performance manage people who maybe have lost motivation or recently been smacked down by a deal and they need their mojo back. You're carrying a big quota. You've got your ELT on you because your quota is going up next quarter. What are you going to do? What are you going
Mhm,
to do? What are you going to do? Having someone else in it with you, that feeling of not being alone, that trust and rapport and partnership is huge. And I think a big part of why I've been able to be as successful as I have in many instances in enablement is because my sales leaders were my partners.
mhm. That's exactly what I wanted to actually say, and you said it. I think your secret sauce is to work with people, and it's the same as when you walk through a large deal. You have multiple different orgs involved, and we have all these tags. Who's a blocker? Who's a champion? Who's a You're trying to get into a company to solve a big problem, and if you cannot partner up with everyone there, and you tag them as blockers, you already have a blocker in front of you. Then try to figure out like what's actually bothering them.
Yeah.
What's the problem? What's not moving the needle for them?
Yeah.
And try, by understanding, you can start building a partnership with everyone. So many
Mhm.
people might actually challenge me on this. No, you can't. Some people inside organizations, they are always going to, there's a reason behind that. There's a reason behind that resistance. Hopefully it's not political. Hopefully they don't want to kill the deal because they have an agenda. But that's part of your job as a seller to figure that out. But I always want to think about people positively.
Mhm.
Let them show it otherwise.
Mhm.
Everybody has good agenda. People are stressed. Things are hard. It's a down market. Let's figure out like what's bothering them and help them. It's the same thing again with your internal team. I love it. All right. I'm gonna ask a question. I don't know if I should ask it or not, but I'm gonna do it anyways.
Oh, yay! Let's do it.
Look, Stephanie, I had a real superstar on the call, and I love this guy dearly. He's a good friend of mine. He scaled his own business to $60 million in ARR. He scaled, seven other, companies as a VP of sales, and he's really hands-on, big in coaching and all that. He said something really controversial the other day, and he said, sales methodologies are overrated and not as important as everybody thinks. How do you feel about this?
It's not as spicy as I thought it was going to be honest.
I
Was a
have
little
another one for you.
disappointed after that one, but it's fine. Um, I think in some ways, I've got some alignment there. I think the sales methodology you choose is arguably less important than how you show up as a team with a consistent operating rhythm and approach that is repeatable, scalable, and effective. So it's not about do you use this methodology or that methodology. And there are some very large organizations, one in particular in tech. I was speaking to an enablement leader over there. They have, over the last 30, 40 years, tried to roll out different methodologies. None of them work. None of them work. None
Goes
of them.
back to your first point, checklist.
And it's kind of a bit of an internal joke with some of their folks in the enablement team. And they don't work because they've already established their own sales methodology as an organization.
Mm-hmm.
And once they learn to embrace that, their own proof points of what is best practice with this kind of discovery and what is best practice with aligning your stakeholders, that's their own secret sauce of how they keep driving success. So I don't think you have to have an external sales methodology. I don't think you have to have a formal methodology. I do think, though, that particularly as companies get bigger and bigger, and you're trying to have that global reach but local touch, ensuring that you're applying your best practices to identify, qualify, and close good business opportunities for your organization is key.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not like leveraging those best practices and sharing those insights as best practices and templates across your sales team, well then, Michael, I'm doing you a disservice if I'm not sharing to you what's working great in my territory for my team with certain discovery questions. If I don't share that with you, like, yo, you're not going to buy me a coffee. What kind of partner am I to you, right? For your region. And so I do think that you need to make sure that you are focused on generating that continued success through best practices and putting some kind of structure and formalization around it. Otherwise, it does become the wild, wild west as companies grow and scale. And the biggest challenge with that is imagine on the other side of the fence, so to speak, for the post-sale customer deployment team, if how one person sells, what they've messaged, and what expectations they've set is totally different than somebody else, that same customer success or launch operations manager, holy heck, how are they going to demonstrate that value to the customer if the message has
Yep.
been totally different up until that point? So, formal external methodology, I agree, not necessarily required. But I think you do have to have something. You need to be intentional.
I think he shares the same sentiment of just being a little cheeky. Wanted to hear what you have to say. And check my post actually. Today I actually tagged him and I shared it this morning. So I'd love to get your thoughts on the comment if you can. All right, my last question, and this one is spicier. I'm telling you. What's your most and least favorite sales methodology of all time, and why? There you go.
You first.
All right. Look, you might pinch me a little bit for calling it a methodology,
Yeah.
but my least favorite is banned because it has nothing to do with your buyer. It adds no value whatsoever to your buyer. It's about your agenda. All right, what's your budget? Do you have? I literally was watching a bunch of call recordings years back, and some of this, they are literally asked these questions, and I'm not kidding. Do you have budget? No, I don't. Okay. Do you make the decision? Okay. Yeah, that's another topic, training. But the questions themselves, the nature of these questions is like, give me the answer that I want to hear.
Hmm. Hmm.
What value does this add? All right, less about negative. My favorite methodology, look, I have my own. I did a mishmash of a few things together that
Okay.
works, for us so far. It's a combination of Medic and Gap. Like,
Okay.
it's something that I built for myself. So yeah, I like the structure of Medic. It's easy to follow, but I like the depth that you get with Gap.
Okay.
To me, gap selling is really interesting, but you need to really understand it. Like you cannot just look at it as a checklist of questions. Okay, let's talk about the current state. Let's talk about the future state. You really need to first focus on the big business problem and then break things down, while doing it. So now your turn. Give it to me, Steph.
So I will say, I think some sales methodologies have been mislabeled. They're actually sales processes or sales criteria. They're not sales methodologies. Those are slightly different things, right? I did a quick Google while you were talking because I was like, man, BAM, I feel like has been around forever. Not my favorite. It's been around since the 50s.
Mhm.
And as I read that just now, I was like, that actually explains a lot. Let's
Yeah.
think about where we were culturally in the 50s throughout different countries in the world, right? Can you buy it? Do you have the money? Are you buying it now? Cool. Culturally, we were at a very different place back in the 50s globally.
Mhm.
I think the other thing to call out is like when that sales process or sales criteria, I'm not even going to call it a methodology, was formed, it was product based selling,
Mhm.
not service based selling or solutions based selling like the majority of us are doing now. And the difference with that, and by the way, I started my career with product based selling. It was literally grocery items, like yogurt, granola bars, soup. Very, very different thing for a couple of reasons. One, those products don't change. Maybe they change once a year. The recipe changes. Maybe the packaging changes every 2 to 4 years. But those are static things that you're selling. The other thing is product-based price or products like that, rather than solutions or services, they often get into commodity conversations. So I talked about this with my sales team recently. Once upon a time, I worked with dairy, milk, and you've probably found this yourself, right? Whether you drink cow's milk or oat milk or other, you go, there's likely 2 to 3 top products on the shelf. You buy whatever one's on sale, all else the same. It's a much more objectified sales process. And so it doesn't have that extra human touch that I think not only are we expected and accustomed to deliver now with a high touch sales approach, but our customers, and even all of us personally, when we go to buy something, are increasingly expecting that personalization and touch. I don't want someone to walk up to me. This happened to me. Personal story. Went into a Best Buy, sorry, Best Buy, and I went to buy a TV. Husband was there. He was totally on board. We knew what size we wanted. Money was set aside. Room was in the vehicle. We were ready to like buy it on site, drive it home, install it. Had a whole plan. So in effect, I was almost like banting myself, right? I was like, all the things. It's ready. 4 things. Boom,
Mm-hmm.
boom, boom. Buying authority, timeline, all the things. Neat. I got in there and the salesperson couldn't guide my sales experience at all. I knew what size I wanted. I knew from a technology perspective, it was one of 2 technology types, right? I could tell her what room the TV was going to go in, how close that was to the window. And she went down this totally different rabbit hole, talking about different colors and everything else that was not remotely related to what my expectation of a buyer's experience was and what I needed in terms of that consultation. Even when I was very specific with this person and said, I'm evaluating 1, 2, and 3. Can you help me understand out of these exact 3 the pros and cons of each?
Just give me
They
the comparison. Yeah.
couldn't get me there. Couldn't get me there. Ended up Googling right in front of me. So my challenge with that is because I think we're at an interesting place where as buyers and as sellers, the bar has risen so high in a lot of especially B2B interactions. And for good reason, and it should be that high. And so with that in mind, when we talk about some of these sales process elements, whether it's a BANT or a MEDIC or a MEDPIC, we're now firmly in the stage, I believe, where it's about leveraging those in combination with a true sales methodology for today's buyer so that we can hit that balance between what is the qualification criteria, right? Versus what is the actual approach strategically that we want to take with our customers. So it's about the balance. So TLDR, don't love BANT, get why it was there at a point in time, not hating on
Poor band.
anybody. It's just 70-ish years old, right? We're at a very different place. So I personally have been working in, for the last few years, a combination of MEDIC or MEDPIC and command of the message.
Mm-hmm.
And I find having that sales process versus having the sales methodology tied in together are really helpful to help guide the qualification criteria and the overall approach.
I love it. That's a pro in action. Anyways, Steph, really do appreciate you. It's always a pleasure, having a conversation with you. If anyone wants to reach out, first and foremost, can they and how?
Absolutely not.
Don't peace slap me. Don't reach out ever.
You've been spicy twice on this podcast. No, of course. I am not big on social media, but everybody, I am on LinkedIn. I am there every day, as Michael well knows. So hit me up, connect with me. Would love to meet more folks in the space.
Awesome. Guys, don't make me look bad. Don't pitch slap her. Don't ask for things. Just reach out. Have a conversation. Be human. All right, Steph, thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.